a bunch of things from the garden, especially zucchini. That's like one of my favorite things to do is go and experiment with things that I can make in the kitchen and all sorts of unique things. So I'm really excited today to share some of my favorite recipes and talk a little bit about some of my favorite ways to use the things that I grew out in the garden and using it in the kitchen. And I would love for you guys to share some too. So in the comment section, please feel free to post if there's something that you really like, and I will definitely give it a try. And I would love to see all of your guys' unique recipes and things like that that you guys do with your garden harvest that you do too. So welcome. I see we have a few people already here in the chat. Welcome, Linda and Wendy. I'm excited to have you guys today. And I would love to see all of you guys comment in there. Tell me where you're from. I am here in Zone 7 in Oklahoma City. It is super, super hot. So we are, doing this inside definitely today. But it is very, very hot where we are right now. But I'm still getting a pretty good harvest. I harvest a whole bunch of tomatoes and peppers and all of that out in the garden. So it's exciting. I hope that you guys can see me okay. I've heard that maybe my video is a little blurry. I am really sorry if that is the case. We're doing our best to correct it. I switched cameras, but I don't know if that helped it at all. But I apologize if I'm a little bit blurry, but hopefully at least the pictures that you'll see today, that's the important thing anyways, looking at the pictures of all the food that we're going to talk about today. Okay, so let's hop into it and start looking at food. I ate right before this because I knew if I didn't, I was going to be absolutely starving. So hopefully you guys have some food where you are, or you're going to be in the same boat. You're going to be starving during this. Yes, I want to make sure that I mention that we are going to be doing a giveaway at the very end of this webinar today for a free 1-year premium app subscription of the From Seed to Spoon app. If you haven't heard of the premium version of the From Seed to Spoon app, you definitely need to go check it out because it has a lot of awesome features on there. And you can go through and log your garden plants, and whenever you plant them, it'll tell you when to expect them to sprout, as well as when you can go about harvesting them, which is the exciting thing that we're going to do today. So there's a lot of really great things on there. So make sure you check it out. Oh, and to be entered, I'm sorry, I didn't even mention that. So make sure that you guys are commenting over to the side on the comment section and participating throughout. And then every time you comment in there, it's going to enter you into the raffle to win. And I will announce it at the end. Okay, so first of all, I just wanted to talk a little bit about how to know whenever your things are ready to harvest, because I see these questions all the time. People posting like pictures of either yellow cucumbers and saying, what did I do wrong? Or just different things like that. Like, how do I know when things are ready? So one thing I do want to mention, so zucchini is one that you want to make sure to look at and harvest whenever you are, whenever it's pretty small. You don't want to be making them wait until they're this big. They will grow that big and you can still use them. I definitely do in my garden, but they taste a lot better and they're easier to do with, they're easier to use in your recipes and all that if they're smaller. Unless you're doing a few things, I will point them out whenever I talk about zucchinis. There's a few things that you can do whenever there is, whenever you have what I call like the baseball bat zucchinis. So there's a lot of those recipes that I will point out too. Other things too, so things like okra, you want to make sure that you're harvesting whenever they're smaller. Once they start to get a little bit larger, they start to get more like fibrous and tough, difficult to eat and make food with. So you want to make sure that you're harvesting them when they are relatively small. And then cucumbers are another one that I see a lot of questions about because there are so many different types of cucumbers, first of all. There's the really small, like pickling ones, and then there's the slicing cucumbers. So it's important to know like which type of cucumbers you have. And then that way you can go through and know at what stage to harvest them. But a key thing that I always say is don't let them turn yellow on the vine. That's when they get too big. They start to turn bitter. They won't taste very good. So you want to make sure to be harvesting them when they're this nice green color that you see in the picture there. And then tomatoes. So there's always this debate of when to harvest tomatoes. But I always say once they start to turn like a little bit of yellow, you can go ahead and harvest them and bring them inside. Especially if you're having any sort of pest issues or anything like that. That way it kind of protects them, adds an extra couple days for them to hopefully be protected from all those pests out there. But you can definitely harvest them at like this stage over here where they're slightly yellow, or you can wait until they get some red on them or when they are completely red. You just take the risk of there being an issue outside. So that's why some people like to harvest them a little bit earlier, but it's definitely up to you. So one thing I do want to mention too, so it is important to, for us at least, to try and extend our harvest times. And especially things like tomatoes and peppers, like in the middle of the summer too, like when it is super hot like this, you won't always get a really fantastic harvest from them just because they kind of shut down a little bit, but they'll come back. Um, but extending your harvest can be really helpful too, and just using shade to your advantage. So things like shade cloth, you can put that up, or you can build yourself like actual like living shade walls. So we like to do that and do things like the cattle panel arch trellises and grow like beans or southern peas, things like that that thrive with a lot of the heat and the sunlight and can provide just a little bit of shade and help to extend the season of whatever's growing underneath it because it can give it just a little bit of afternoon break from the sun. Okay. So a question that we always get to is how to go about storing your food once you harvest it. And one of the biggest things that I want to mention too is a lot of these will require like a cool, dark place. So I put a lot of things like this picture right here is a picture off of our kitchen that I have inside of one of our cabinets, and I put a bunch of our squashes there and covered it with some burlap. And those squashes lasted forever. I will tell you that. But anything like that, like especially with like potatoes, onions, you want to make sure to keep them in a cool, dry place that is out of direct sunlight. So something like this, if you have space in your kitchen area and a cabinet, all of that is really great. And then whenever I harvest like things like our tomatoes and peppers, I just keep them on the counter until I go about using them or preserving them or something along those lines. And also, so with those tomatoes, so if you harvested them at the stage where I showed where they were in that picture before, like the little bit of yellow, if you put them on the counter, like they'll go about, this picture. So at that stage, if you just put them out on the counter, they will ripen on their own in the counter and they will do really well. Okay, I see we have some questions. Let's see. I did the same thing and then finally went ahead and picked a few, although not red yet. They ripened faster in the house than on the vine. Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, they definitely do really well on the counter, ripening themselves. Yeah, paper bags. Yeah, that definitely can help too. If you put your tomatoes inside of a paper bag, because it can really help to ripen them. Okay, so Wendy wants to know, how about harvesting chickpeas first year growing them? So these are going to be very similar to beans. So if you've ever grown any sort of beans or peas or anything like that, you can do that. You'll just harvest them very similarly. I have lots of videos of just of me and the kids out there in the garden just pulling beans off of the vine and going through. So it'll be very similar to all of that. Okay, so real quick, before I go in and show you guys a few pictures and things like that of some of my favorite things that I've made, I do want to point out that a lot of these recipes we have are also in our From Seed to Spoon app. So I have a screenshot over here of where you can find it. So I showed a screenshot of zucchini because with zucchini, there's a whole bunch of recipes. So on the zucchini, if you go to the More tab up at the very top, there's a section for articles, recipes, and videos. So you can click on the recipes. It'll pull up just all of those recipes and things that we have come up and made in our garden. And then if you click on them, it'll pull up the actual recipe from our website. And that's what this screenshot is right here. But we are also going to be posting links to the direct recipes to the side. So make sure to be paying attention. Okay, so I hear my tomato plant hasn't produced anything yet. So depending on where you are, it's possible that it is just too hot right now because it is super hot right now. I know mine are starting to slow down because we've gotten super hot. But once it starts getting back down into like the 90s and lower 90s, I'd say, then it'll start to pick back up, hopefully for you, depending on the type of tomatoes and all of that and where you live too. Okay, so first I wanted to talk about herbs because this is something that, I mean, you can make countless things with, I feel like. And even a lot of the recipes that I talk about, like even with like zucchinis and some of the other recipes will all call for some herbs too. But I just wanted to specially call out herbs because if you haven't grown anything before and you're a beginner, like this is definitely the place to start is all herbs because you can use it so many different ways in the kitchen. I mean, honestly, you can't go wrong with growing any sort of herbs, and they will give you a lot of harvest too. So we have things like pestos that we've made before, which are so good. If you haven't ever tried it, I hadn't actually ever tried it before I made it. And I had just heard people talk about pesto. So I didn't really even know what it was. But whenever I made it, I was like, oh my gosh, I understand why people love it so much because it tastes so good. It's super simple to make. I just put all of the ingredients into a food processor, blend it all up, and then boom, you have your pesto. And you can also do this to preserve too. And then I have the recipe that they'll be posting up here too of all of the different ingredients and all of that if you guys are interested. But yeah, it's super simple to make the pesto. It tastes great. You can use it in a whole bunch of different ways. Another one, and what's really great about pesto too is that so the recipe that I have is for sage pesto, which is actually like one of my favorites. I absolutely love sage pesto, but there's a lot of different herbs that you can make pesto with. Like you can substitute out the sage and use basil or something like that. So that's something that's great about pesto. Like you can make the same recipe but switch out the herb and it tastes completely different. It is great. And then also I want to mention my favorite chives. Super easy to grow and they come back year after year and they spread and take over. And I can never have enough chives. Absolutely love it. But one of my favorite ways to use it is super simple, making mashed potatoes, because I do that all the time. and I use these kitchen scissors all the time. If you've never seen those, you need to check them out. They're super cool. They just have like 5 blades on them as you cut, and it makes it really simple to go through and use it in the kitchen. So I do that into mashed potatoes. I do scrambled eggs with them, a lot of different things. Like I add chives too, and it's super great. Um, and then one way at the end of the season that we go about preserving all of these herbs is we have these like silicone ice trays that we put in like chopped up either basil or whatever herb it is that we have a lot of. And I put a lot of that into each ice cube tray and then pour a little oil on top of it and then put it in the freezer. And then whenever I let them freeze and then I move them over to a freezer safe bag. But then that way, whenever I'm going through, I'm making like a pasta sauce or something like that, I can just pop out one of these ice cubes, essentially ice cubes. I pop them on my pan and I let it melt out. And then I already have my oil. I have some dried herbs that are ready to go in there, fresh herbs. It's an amazing way to go about preserving your herbs and having them even in the winter time. So I highly recommend doing all that. And if you guys have any other favorite ways to use your herbs, I would love to hear them. Oh, sorry, I didn't see that question. Patty says, which sage? Garden sage is the sage that we use typically. And then fruits, of course, I had to mention fruits. I mean, things like strawberries. We have a blackberry vine as well. We have a peach tree, which is really cool. So we've made all sorts of different things from those. But it's actually very simple to go about making some of these jams and jellies. And you don't always have to, if you're going to be eating it right away, you don't always have to go through and like perfectly know how to can, because that's my weakness, is the terrifying like canning it right. I definitely need to get better at that. So if anybody has any tips, please leave them in there. But I typically do like the adding of the lemon juice and things like that. And then I put them in the fridge, and then we eat on them for the next month or so. And they taste incredible. Absolutely love them. So I have a bunch of recipes too for making these jams. And again, you can do whatever fruit you have in your garden. Things like strawberries, if you have a blackberry vine, if you have raspberries, whatever you have. I just wanted to make sure I touched on those fun things to make, because those are super fun. And then I actually have a video too for how I made it, and it was super fun to make. I loved it. So Terry says, any tips for dehydrating herbs? I just bought a dehydrator. So, I mean, honestly, with herbs, you don't necessarily have to have a dehydrator. It can definitely help and make it go faster. In the dehydrator, I would probably do more of the woody herbs, just to make it a little bit easier. But typically what we do with our herbs is whenever we harvest them, we just tie them together, hang them up, upside down, and they're great. It's a great decoration too, and it smells good too. I love it. So yeah, you might want to look at using things like rosemary, thyme, oregano. Those type of herbs would do really well in the dehydrator. Okay, some of my favorites right here. I absolutely love zucchini, and they are so tasty. I had to dedicate 2 different slides, believe it or not, because I had some of these more traditional. I want to say traditional. They're not traditional at all. Except the simple sauteed squash one. But More of the less hidden, I will say. And then the next slide, I go over some of the zucchini recipes that you can't tell at all that there's any zucchini in. So I wanted to have them just a little bit separated. But these ones taste so good. So some of my favorites are the zucchini pizza bites. If you guys have not seen those or tried them, you definitely need to. They are a hit with everybody in the family, and also with all of the kids. They absolutely love it. One of our kids made the video for making the zucchini pizza bites. So you guys need to make sure you check that out because it was really cute because she went through. I mean, obviously, I had to use the knife and cut the zucchini. I sliced it up for her. But besides that, like she did everything on there and did it great and perfect. They taste so good. We make them either in the oven or also we've made them recently in like the air fryer and it works really well. And they taste so good. The kids love them. So it's definitely kid approved. Another kid approved that I want to mention is that Parmesan crusted zucchini fries. They are so good too. It was so funny. We were having hamburgers one night and I was going to make French fries to go with them. And I was like, I have all these zucchinis. Why don't I make zucchini fries? So I did that. And the kids just went crazy for them. They absolutely love them. They eat them just like French fries, dip them in some ketchup, eat away. They absolutely love them. Again, they're not difficult to make at all. All I did was just simply, you can make it in different ways. You can slice them just like this, like French fries look, or you can make them like circles, like the pizza bites, however you want to. But essentially you just do that. And then you roll it in like some milk, egg mixture, and then put it into the flour mixture and then bake, either put it in the air fryer or bake it or put it on the stovetop and fry it. However you want to do it, really. But it makes for tasty, tasty food. Absolutely love it. And then more of my favorites, zucchini pasta, of course. If you have a spiralizer, makes this so much simpler for you. I have an attachment for my KitchenAid that just spiralizes the zucchini for me. And I just cook the zucchini on the stove for a little bit to just cook it. And then I add everything just like pasta on it. So like tomato sauce. And then sometimes I'll do some meatballs. So good. Very, very tasty. So again, but if you aren't a fan of the zucchini taste, or if somebody is picky, they may not like the green noodles. I love it, and then most of the kids actually enjoy the zucchini pasta too. So that's saying something. And then also there's just the simple sauteed squash. I mean, just simply chopping it, and you can saute it, roast it, anything like that. Super good. Very easy to make. Yes, I'm so glad you love zucchini and squash and with onions and bacon. That sounds great. I absolutely love that idea with adding some, I bet like sauteing some onions and adding some small pieces of bacon into that. That sounds amazing. Okay, so hiding zucchini. This is probably one of my favorite topics to do because you can honestly hide zucchini in a little bit of everything, which is fantastic. Let's see. So we have the zucchini oat chocolate chip cookies, which are super good, and they are they're just like oats, and I put some chocolate chips in there, and I also just slice up that zucchini and put it into there, and that zucchini's in real small pieces. I mean, you can see like a little bit of it in that picture, but you can't taste any of it at all. Like you would have no idea that there's any zucchini in it, and the kids just devour it, absolutely devour it. Same as the zucchini brownies. I mean, really, honestly, everything here is super great. And of course, they're not going to be like the super healthiest because you are adding sugar and all of that and chocolate, especially in these zucchini brownies. But you are adding zucchini to it. So I always feel like it's better at least that way, right? Than just eating regular brownies. But yeah, zucchini brownies are super tasty. You definitely need to check out that recipe. It is fun to make. The kids actually made a video for both of those the kids made, and they loved making it. They love eating it. Of course, they're always begging to make these. Anytime we have zucchini, they're like, "Can we make some brownies?" They just want it all the time. While we're on the topic of sweets, I'll skip to the zucchini bread. Zucchini bread is also super tasty. And again, you can't even see or taste the zucchini in it. So, somebody who doesn't really like healthy things or doesn't like zucchini, it is a super easy way to disguise the zucchini. I love making the zucchini bread, and what I do differently, I put in like cinnamon chips, and oh, makes it the best ever. I absolutely love it. But yeah, make sure you check out the recipe. I have the recipe over here, and we'll post it up here. But also, you have access to all of these recipes too if you have the From Seed to Spoon app, because it's under the more section. You'll have all of the recipes for each one. So if you go into zucchini right there, it'll pull up all of them. And then while we're on the topic of bread, I'll skip over. So the sandwich bread that I have is super easy to make. And typically, whenever I make sandwich bread, I'll just add regular milk. Well, this is one that you can do and do the so you can do what's called milk the zucchini. So this is really good if you have like a huge baseball bat. You can go through like one of those really huge zucchinis. You can go through and almost just put it through a blender and run it through there, and you get like essentially just like a juice kind of. And you can substitute the milk in that sandwich bread with this zucchini milk, and it's terrific. Like, it doesn't change the color, it doesn't change the taste, nothing. It is super great. And oh, I forgot to mention too. So with those zucchini baseball bats, a really good one to make is those pizza, those little pizza bites. Really easy to do because it makes those just a little bit bigger than the standard. So it makes it a little bit easier for the kids to eat. So there's still a lot of uses for those baseball bats. So you're doing sandwich bread, milking it, or putting it in a pizza bites, super great. And then these last two. So my personal favorite is probably this zucchini grilled cheese. I am a huge fan of the zucchini grilled cheese. It is, oh man, it tastes so good. So it's interesting because like the top parts that would typically be bread is just made up of like a flour recipe, with the zucchini, and it tastes so good. So it's almost like I have the zucchini breaded on the top and bottom, and then cheese in the center melted. Tastes incredible. Oh, okay. Now I'm getting hungry, and now I want that because it is so good. Hopefully I have a zucchini I can use for that because I really want to eat that right now. It is tasty. Yeah. So that zucchini grilled cheese, I can't say enough good things about it. It's probably my favorite recipe, my favorite thing that I make with zucchini, because it's just amazing. Trust me. And then zucchini hash browns. If you haven't tried these, you definitely need to too. So good. You can mix up actually some potatoes and zucchinis together here, and you can honestly not tell that there's any zucchini in it at all. It is super tasty. And we make these in the morning, put them with some scrambled eggs, again with some chives too, right? And it's super great. And the kids would never know. They'll have no idea that there's any zucchini in it at all. So there's just a lot there. I mean, these are like, I think we talked about like 10 different recipes here for zucchini, but honestly, there's so many different recipes that you can try. And I would love to see and hear your guys' favorites too. So make sure that you guys are posting your favorites, because I am always up for trying new zucchini recipes because it's my favorite. And hopefully you guys have a lot of zucchini that you can harvest in the garden because you guys are going to have a lot of baking to do. Okay, so on the topic of squash, let's talk briefly about a few of the other squashes and things like that that you can make. So spaghetti squash, I'm a huge fan of as well. Super easy to make also. So what we do with our spaghetti squash is just simply chop it in half, open it up, and you can either pop it in the oven like that with some olive oil drizzled on top, or you can just pop it in the air fryer. Makes it a lot faster if you have an air fryer and goes super, super fast and easy. So that's definitely one thing that I love to do. And then you just simply go through once it's done cooking and just use a fork and scrape it, and it comes out with these spaghetti noodles. So it's terrific. You can eat them just like this, and just put some salt and pepper, garlic on it, however you want it. Or you can actually make like an actual pasta with it. Just like we talked about with a zucchini pasta, you can put some tomato sauce and things like that on it. But honestly, it is so good. And it's not green, so you may get the kids to be fooled on the noodles there. Another one of my favorites with butternut squash is just simply air frying some butternut squash and adding in like some cinnamon and just like some sweetness. So cinnamon, honey, things like that. And it makes it so sweet and tasty. And it honestly, like, it just tastes to me like fall. Every time I eat butternut squash, I'm just like, oh, it just tastes so good. I absolutely love it. And then one thing I did want to mention too, especially with things like pumpkins, anytime you're going through and harvesting any of these, I always say, like, use all the pieces of it, because like you can eat all of those seeds. The seeds will have lots of great nutritional value. And I just simply go through and roast the seeds, and it is super tasty, very healthy. The kids love to munch on them. So that's definitely something that I always recommend for you guys to do. And then beans. So beans are something that we always have a huge harvest of come this time of year. And luckily, because we eat a lot of beans, and there's just a lot of ways to go about eating them too. So we have the sauteed green beans. So what we do for that, I actually just made a short, a video for it, because I went through and made them just the other night. And they're so good, super easy to do. I simply just saute some onions and garlic alongside with these green beans and just mix them up and cook them on the stovetop for a while. And they're so good. They get to be super tasty. And then other ways that you can go about like preserving them. I wanted to make sure I mentioned that because, again, there's a whole bunch of beans, for us at least, because beans is something that we plant a lot of, and you can get a huge harvest from just one plant. So with these, like, it's pretty easy to preserve them. So we have two favorite ways that we go about preserving our beans. So one way is whenever we harvest them fresh, we go through and just simply do what's called blanching them and then freezing them. And then I put them in like just serving size bags into the freezer. So that way, whenever I want to go eat them, I can just pull out one baggie, dump them all out, and I'm good to go. Super simple, easy to do. We have a video about how to do that if you're interested. Another way that you can go about preserving them is actually just letting them stay on the vine. So it's interesting, but the dried beans are actually like the same thing as like those, like the dried black beans that you'll like buy at the store. So you can just pull like these beans, like you can kind of see on the picture whenever they get old and on the vine, if you let them stay on there and they start to dry. So all you can do, like you can just break that apart and you have those little seeds inside. So again, you can use those and you can plant them again next season, or you can put them into a little mason jar and use that as dried beans. And I go through and make those in the Instapot. Again, like you can store those super easy in your pantry. So I use those like all winter long. I'll just have dried beans just from the vine and have them in a little mason jar and then make them in the Instapot. Super great. Again, I have all the recipes and everything like that you guys need in the comments section. Okay, I wanted to touch on peppers too and okra. So a few more things, because I know a lot of people, if you're like us, we have a huge pepper harvest and we are growing a lot of peppers right now and a lot of different types of peppers right now. And there's so many different ways that you can go about eating them and preserving them. But I wanted to talk a little bit about preserving them because that's pretty much how we eat them a lot of the time. I feel like everybody knows how to go about making things with peppers and adding spice, but a lot of people don't necessarily know about the different ways to preserve them. So one of our favorite ways is just simply going through and having them frozen. And so I will run them through the Ninja and then lay them out flat. So just this center picture right here. I'll lay them out flat, put them in the freezer for a day or two, and then pull them out and then take them out and put them in a freezer safe baggie. And then they're good in the freezer for a while. I go through and I use this like anytime I'm making any sort of dish that I want to make just a little bit spicy, I'll go through and saute in the peppers with it. And it is amazing. It's super simple. It's super easy to have and just sitting there in the freezer. And it's something really great to add into a lot of different recipes. Another way that we go through, we've done dehydrating before in our dehydrator. So I know people were asking earlier about what to do with our dehydrator. This would be a good thing too. So if you have an excess of peppers, dehydrating them would be great. And then once you dehydrate them, you can use them as like chili, like the chili powder on top of things, anything like that, like pepper flakes to add on top of pizzas. Honestly, any dish. There's like so many dishes you can add this to. And then you can also roast them. We've done some outside, and it's really fun and definitely tasty. There's so many different ways that you can go about using peppers. Again, I would love to hear all of your guys' recipes and everything that you guys do to preserve. Because if you guys have any other ideas, I'd love to hear them. And again, I wanted to mention the okra. So okra is something that you can get a huge harvest from sometimes. And everybody always talks about gumbo because that's pretty much the only thing that everybody knows about how to make with okra, I feel like. But okra is super tasty. You could actually just eat okra like fresh off of the plant. And it's interesting. Like it tastes really good. So if you get one of the smaller ones again, like you can just bite it and eat it while you're outside. It's that good. But one of my favorite recipes is just simply taking okra and chopping it up and with some onions and garlic and sauteing that. And it tastes really good too. So there's a whole bunch of great, unique things that you can do with okra as well. Okay, so this is probably another favorite slide of mine because there's so many different like recipes that you can make with a bunch of different types of food. So these ones are combining, again, like probably something from every slide that we've talked about. So, I mean, the like chicken noodle soup, potato soup, doesn't just have potatoes in it. It has things like carrots in it, as well as a lot of herbs that we pull from the garden as well. And all of those, honestly, we mix and match. We pull lots of things from the garden into all of these soups, stir fries, all of that. Like you can, like there's countless things that you can add. Honestly, whenever we make a stir fry, we just go out grocery shopping into the garden and pull anything that looks to be ready to harvest. I mean, you can put anything from beans to herbs in it, to peppers, onions. I mean, all of that. Like we go through and add in anything and everything really that we can find out there. And it's really great. Again, things like pizzas. We do a lot of like making our own pizzas here. And I don't know. I think we have a recipe for pizza, but I don't think I gave it to them ahead of time. So maybe they can find that recipe for pizza and put it up onto the comment section, because it is super good making pizza yourself and then putting in some fresh ingredients from the garden. And you can make your own tomato sauce with your tomatoes, and then you can put in some herbs on top. You can do like cilantro or basil, or I mean, really any sort of herb you can put on top of it. It is amazing, and it is a great way to top it. And I absolutely recommend giving that a try, because it'll be a huge hit for the kids too. They'll absolutely love eating pizza that they have helped make. It is really fun to do. And then I think salsa is the only thing I haven't talked about. So salsa, again, like I actually have my salsa garden going right now, and it is about time to harvest, which is really exciting because I pretty much have everything I need for it now. So we have, all of your tomatoes, peppers, onions, garlic, all of that you can go through. And then like there's some unique things that you can add to salsas too. So things like basil, chives, things like that you wouldn't necessarily think of, would be a terrific addition to any sort of salsas. And again, I'd love to see your salsa recipes, because I know there's so many different salsa recipes out there. And I'm going to be making a lot of salsa because I have a whole bunch of tomatoes and peppers. So I would love to see if you guys have any great recipes for salsa. I would love to see them and share them with everybody. And last but not least, I do want to touch on some refreshing drinks too that you can make out of the garden and stuff. These are all of my favorite things. These are my favorite drinks to do. So I love all of these. So there's the juice recipe up here that honestly, it is a mix and match also too, because it really just depends on what I have going in the garden, what I put in this. So one of my favorite things though to do in it is carrots. Honestly, carrot juice is so good. If you haven't tried it before, you definitely need to. But honestly, whatever I have going in the garden, like I'll pop into this juice, and I have a juicer that I put it through. And it tastes really good. I absolutely love it. So yeah, they posted the recipe off to the side. So, but again, like it doesn't even have to be a specific recipe. It can just be mix and match of whatever you have available and on hand. And then I do have so in the middle, this is one I know a lot of people don't necessarily grow their own citrus, but I did want to include this too, just because it is so good. And honestly, one of our favorite drinks is just by going through and using our little, oh gosh, my mind went blank. What's it called? Our little soda thing. Soda stream. Yes. Thank you. So our soda stream that we have, it is super great. So we take just water and give it a little bit of carbonation. And then I just squeeze in a little bit of lime, lemon, and an orange too sometimes. It is really tasty. And this has actually helped a lot of the time too. Like Dale, he had a really bad soda addiction. So we started making a lot of these, and it really helped him too. So he always says that this is the drink that helps him with his soda addiction. So if you guys have a soda addiction, you definitely need to try this drink, because it will help with that. It tastes just like 7-Up, Sprite. Like it's really, really good, very refreshing. And I feel better, obviously, drinking it because it doesn't have all of the bad stuff in it. And then over here, last but not least, we have our mint water that we have there. We love to make this. So all we do here is just put a little bit of water and ice water, and then we go through and just harvest a bunch of mint and put a bunch of mint leaves in there. We've also in the past, so whenever we have a lot of cucumbers, we have sliced our cucumbers and frozen them. So that way we can go and pull our sliced frozen cucumbers and put them into this drink right here. And they work almost like ice cubes too, but it gives you just a slight taste. But it is so good. That's probably one of my favorite ways to do cucumbers, besides just eating them plain or putting them in salads and stuff. But that's probably one of my favorite things to do with cucumbers is simply just freezing slices and putting them in water, just using them as ice cubes. It's very refreshing, tastes amazing. Absolutely recommend that. Okay. Well, I have been talking for a really long time, I feel like. So thank you all for sticking with us. This was really fun. I love sharing recipes, and I get really excited about food, of course, because there's just so many great things that you can make. But I do want to say, like, if you guys have any questions, I know we went through and answered a few of your guys' questions as we were going through. But if you guys have additional questions or anything like that, feel free to pop them in the chat, and they will pull up the questions for me as we go. And we will be announcing the giveaway here shortly too for the 1-year free premium app subscription. Okay, so Tara wants to know, does sage freeze well? I have so much. Absolutely. So what I do whenever I preserve it is, I know I was talking a little bit about those ice cube trays that I make. That's one way that you can go about preserving sage is by putting them in those little ice cube trays and putting some oil on top. That'll really help to preserve the taste and the flavor, all of that in the sage itself whenever you're doing it. Another thing too, like you can do pestos and preserve them in that way too, and freeze those. Ours just never last long enough because I make a giant batch of pesto and then it's gone within a day, I feel like. So for us in our house, it doesn't last that long. But for you, maybe the pesto will last longer and you can preserve some of that as well. So Debbie says, what's your favorite thing to make with all of your tomatoes? I have about 24 to use. Wow, lucky you. That's amazing. Yeah, I have quite a bit of tomatoes to use myself right now. So I mean, honestly, my favorite thing is probably just simply putting them in salsas because I can use it in so many different ways. Like we can make like a taco salad and do a salsa in that, or I can simply just eat chips and salsa, or I can preserve the salsa too. I know that's nothing like super unique, like we talked about, but I also like doing pizza sauces. So making our homemade dough and then making some pizza sauce with the tomatoes and doing that. So it's super good for that too. And that'll go through quite a bit of your tomatoes if you do some pizza sauce. Okay. Okay, we're doing the giveaway now. Okay. So it looks like they have a winner. Our winner is Linda Weinmunson. I think that's how you would pronounce it. Congratulations, Linda. Very excited for you. Make sure you email us at info@seedtospoon.net and we will get you all hooked up on your free 1-year free premium app subscription. So make sure you email us and we will get you all set up. Very exciting. So I think we have a couple more questions too that we'll go through until we kind of run out of time here. So Debbie says she had 3 zucchini plants, lots of leaves and flowers and bees, but no fruits from it. Why might that be? Well, I mean, there's a lot of different things that can affect this. So, honestly, those male flowers do typically come first, and then the females come after that, and that's where the fruit comes from. So, it's possible that you just had a lot of those male flowers and you didn't have the female flowers yet. Um, but also, I might look into that. Like, does it have enough sun? Um, is the soil have enough compost or fertilizers in it? Um, Anything like that, you might want to look at also. Um, but it's possible that you just had a bunch of male flowers and not the female ones yet. And hopefully they will come soon, depending on how old it is, too. That could be a factor. Okay, so Wendy wants to know, are yard long beans harvesting allowing to go to seeds follow the same idea as the other you mentioned? Growing them for the first time too. Okay. I love yard long beans. So, yes, they are definitely, it's definitely very similar to the other type of beans. You'll just let them get a little bit bigger. But again, you want to make sure that you harvest them young before they start to get almost like lumpy looking. So you don't want them to get too big because then they start to taste more tough. So same thing with like the beans and peas. You always want to harvest them a little bit early so they are a little bit, a little bit more tasty um, and a good texture. Um, so yeah, once they get, I mean, they'll get real long for you. And they're super great. I love them. The kids get a huge kick out of them whenever they go out and harvest those because they're so much fun. But yeah, just before they start getting like almost lumpy looking, like you can see the seeds inside, you want to harvest them just before that. Yes, Sue says, I love okra raw. Me too. Yeah, okra raw tastes amazing. And her favorite is grilling them whole with olive oil and salt. Okay, that's interesting. I've never tried grilling an okra whole before with olive oil and salt. I'm definitely going to have to give that one a try. Thank you for suggesting that. Sounds good. Oh, that's exciting. I'm so glad that we've motivated you. Get started gardening and harvesting everything. That's terrific. Okay, so this is a great question. May I ask what size pot would be good for growing herbs if in an apartment? So I mean, it really just depends on the size that you have available. I mean, if you're going to be growing on like a patio or a balcony, something like that, or indoors, I mean, you can do that too. A lot of these herbs will be good for indoors too. Um, but honestly, I mean, you can go down pretty small with some of these herbs, but I typically stick with like 3 to 5 gallon ones. And then you can go through and harvest them like when they're younger too. So you can go smaller and just keep them harvested. And things like thyme that will like trail almost like outside of it, that'll help you with space as well because like it can grow over the side of the pot and it looks really pretty too. So that might be something that you look into doing to help like save a little bit of space. Okay. We're having issues in zone 6 with peppers not producing. I have 3 plants but no fruits. So again, so in zone 6, I'm not sure how hot it is where you're at, but I know for me in zone 7, I'm probably pretty close. Um, we are really hot right now. We are probably pretty much every day here for a while. It's been like 100 degrees. So the fruits won't really form whenever it's too hot. So it may possibly be just a little bit too hot for you. And you may just need to wait until the temperatures die back a little bit. They will typically start to struggle a little bit and not produce quite as much once it hits in the 90s. So I would probably say that's probably what's going on. And then just wait for it to get a little bit cooler. Be patient. It'll come back. Trust me. We always have a whole bunch of peppers whenever the temperatures start to go back down. So it's great. You'll have another huge swing of it here soon, hopefully. Okay, I'm growing eggplant for the first time. I have the fairy tale eggplant. How do I prepare it now that I'm harvesting it? Okay, eggplant was something that we did not talk about today. I'm sorry. Yeah, I tell you, there's so many different things that we could have talked about today that we didn't, but gosh, I feel like I had to draw the line somewhere. But eggplant is definitely something that's super simple to do. Like typically what we do with a lot of these type of things, we just slice it and up and then saute it simply with some olive oil, onions, garlic. I like to do that with things like eggplants, beans. I mean, even these squashes that we've been talking about. I mean, there's pretty much everything tastes great sauteed in olive oil with onions and garlic. Absolutely love it. So I definitely want to make sure that I always say that. And if anybody else has any other good eggplant recipes, I would love to see them, because eggplant's not really something that I've cooked a lot with, only a little bit. So if anybody has any unique ideas for eggplants, I would love to see them and see your ideas. Oh, zucchini bake. Let's see what we have here. Zucchini yellow squash cut in slices. Layer in a cake pan with onions, pads of butter, and your favorite cheese. Bake at 350 degrees until done. That sounds fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. I love this idea of zucchini bake. Yeah, I'm definitely going to need to try that too. Ooh, Linda has a squash casserole with squash, parmesan, breadcrumbs, green onions, and chives. Oh, yeah. This sounds terrific too. I'm always a fan of casseroles. That sounds fantastic. I love it. Well, thank you guys so much for coming today and sharing your recipes and your ideas. I love to see everybody's ideas. I'm definitely going to have to try a lot of these myself too. So, yes, thank you so much for coming, everybody. It was super fun. And I will see you all again. I do these webinars with different topics every 2 weeks, same time, same place. So I look forward to seeing you all then. Thank you all. Bye.